Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing this Beuchat Espadon. This example is a 75. They also have a 50 and a 35, but we're going to go over the technicalities first and then talk about my brief experience using this on a shore dive. But today we're going to go from butt to tip. Let's dive in. So first we have our trigger mechanism here. The housing is all plastic. You can hear that. There is a safety, really ergonomic, surprisingly, in the water and easy to use. It's either on, so safety's on, or it's off, where you switch it downwards. Right there. Just slide it back, it's off. Right here, it actually has a decent trigger pull, in my opinion, for this price point, and that's a good first starting point. This spear gun might be the cheapest, or if one of the cheaper spear guns. If you're starting out the sport, you're probably looking at something like this. This one is about $100 or so for the 75. You can find this in all sorts of stores, but pretty decent trigger pull for the price point. This is, again, keep in mind, it's about $100. Pretty long, but once it releases, it's actually a pretty confidence-inspiring release, in my opinion. A little long than I'd like, but pretty decent. But overall, trigger mechanism, the internals that hold the actual shaft is metal, but then some of the other components are plastic. So just keep that in mind. Again, $100 price point. But overall, the feel is not bad. Safety is very ergonomic to use. And the handle feel, for being plastic in general, like this kind of universal handle, is not bad. Nevertheless, we move on to the tube. It's an aluminum tube with a galvanized steel shaft here, and what we have on the shaft is a nylon 2mm nylon line, and this is probably the most unique part of this particular spear gun compared to others, especially the higher end ones, but even so with the entry level ones. This spear gun does not have a line release. So what that means for those of you that are not familiar, and if you're shopping around for an entry-level spear gun, most spear guns, when you pull the trigger, before you do, there is a little mechanism, a little barb that comes out. When you pull the trigger, it releases the line in tandem with your trigger pull. This one, there's no such release. And all you do once you have the shaft inside your trigger mechanism is you use the bottom portion here and you use friction just to hold it in. So that, and now it's in. And that's it. That's all that's holding your line together. So that's one thing that's really unique about this spear gun. I'll share my experience with that at the end. But again, 2mm nylon string, shaft, aluminum barrel. And this is a tube gun. So as the name explains, it's just one solid tube. However, Beuchat does add this little support in the middle here to kind of guide the shaft on kind of more straight. So if I pull the shaft off, you can get a better look. See how the shaft just falls right in that cave, and it helps guide the shaft all the way back to the trigger. And then now moving up, we have our rubber. This is 14mm rubber, really easy to pull right here. And they're screw-on bridles. This is a stainless steel bridle. So you want to make sure, if you have a bridle system like this, you're always making sure these are tight. Same thing with pretty much everything else that's screw-on, which brings me to the tip. The tip is it's a single, has a nice little flopper here. Flopper is really small compared to other spear guns you might have been seeing online, but it does screw off, which is really interesting. And I will say, from my personal use using this, be careful when you're using the just be mindful, I guess, of using this screw off. It does get pretty loose, and especially after you shoot a fish and when it's fighting around, it does seem like it spins pretty freely. So you just want to make sure that's hand tight. So pretty nice for what you're going for, probably some smaller reef fish when you're starting out with a gun like this. It's perfect for the job. Moving slightly back to where the shaft goes into the muzzle of the spear gun. It's this hollow tunnel plastic guide, and typically on most spear guns, you'll have the line that pulls down. You wrap the shaft on the tip, and that holds the shaft in place typically. In this case, not the case. It's just this tunnel where the shaft lives inside, and you could see the play here. Naturally, if you have something that's not as secure as a line holding it down, I'll give you an idea here of how it is. So that little hole is where the shaft goes into. Now I'm going to feed this through as I would in the water. All you do is feed it through that hole underneath your rubber, all the way back to your trigger. And this does make loading a little bit easier because you don't have to deal with wrapping the line over your shaft as you would another spear gun. But keep that in mind. This type of muzzle, the accuracy is not that great, but again, for $100, this is pretty good starting package. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the technicalities of this spear gun. Pretty simple design. Overall, for the price point, I think there's a lot of bang for buck here. My only thing is this line release, and this goes into kind of start my personal experience with this on my shore dive. Accuracy was okay. I'm used to, I typically shoot with a Pathos sniper roller, which is much more accurate than this. So I was a little jaded with my spear gun and then using this. So accuracy was not that great, but I can see if you're just starting out, it's plenty good enough. Secondly, I want to point out when you're loading this spear gun, the tabs, the little indentations there to load the bridle onto the shaft, you want to make sure that's really secure. And what I was doing, my spear gun has some shark fins, so once you're over that shark fin, it's more or less secure. This one, when you're loading it, you want to make sure you kind of angle the steel bridle kind of downward onto the shaft, and then make sure it's caught. Because when I first loaded it, I thought I had it in, I let go, and then the rubber shot back out. So you just want to be careful of that. But that was not difficult to get used to, but after the first lesson, once it released, I made sure that was that didn't happen again. So just another small thing to keep in mind. The biggest complaint I have for this spear gun is the line. This line friction system thing gets really annoying because not only does it have a lot of slack on the bottom, and sometimes it gets caught on rocks or kelp or whatnot, and it just gets pulled out really easily, and then now you have this free floating line, which can get annoying. And resetting this is not a big job, but I was doing this more often than I would have liked. So I would recommend, if you're looking for a spear gun in this price point, maybe spend a little bit more for one with a line release. That's my biggest thing. Overall, as a package, this is a great entry-level spear gun. But if you can spend the extra couple bucks and get one with a line release, I would do that. But yeah, so this is the Beuchat Espadon. Really nice, small. This is a 75, which I think is a great size for reef fishing. Any smaller, I think with this single band 14 mil, it's starting to get a little weak, maybe just for hole hunting and whatnot. But at least in Southern California, where you need a little bit of range for even for your reef fish, your opali, your calicos, sheephead, you might want to opt in for something like this, a 75. So again, Beuchat Espadon. I hope this review was helpful to you in your spearfishing journey. If you're watching this video I'm assuming you're just starting out the sport, you want to give it a try. Maybe give this a shot. I would say, again, maybe go for another one with a line release, or even a pole spear is a great option. But yeah, here it is, Beuchat Espadon. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.